Hello, this is Chris Heasley with the Chris Heasley Radio Show. The Cambodian people are an incredibly hard-working people. They are ambitious. They yearn for knowledge and the development of skills. They bestow all of these traits, all of these characteristics onto their children. It is a driving part of the Cambodian culture. So when the Khmer Rouge political party arrived onto the scene and began a message of workers' rights, the Cambodian people listened. Because the truth is there is a legitimate need for workers' rights across the planet. And there was a legitimate need for workers' rights in the 1950s and in the 1960s in Cambodia. And so the Cambodian people embraced the Khmer Rouge political party. And the Khmer Rouge, they for a short time represented the interests of the Cambodian people, but within some time, likely by a foreign element with ulterior motives. A foreign element that had no interest in workers' rights, no interest in the Cambodian people, but rather intended to use that political party as a weapon against the Cambodian people. So the Khmer Rouge political party was hijacked. And what that party started to do was it started to malign and disparage the Cambodian people publicly. It started to talk to them in demeaning terms. It started rhetoric that was not kind, that characterized and painted the people of Cambodia as something that they are not. It characterized them as violent, as having ethnic racial tendencies, as being bigoted and ignorant, as being uneducated and lazy. It was this rhetoric that created a division between the Khmer Rouge and the people of Cambodia. Who was causing this division? Why did the Khmer Rouge turn on the people of Cambodia? It is clear the Khmer Rouge no longer reported to the Cambodian people, so who were they reporting to and who was pulling their strings? But it is very important to realize this totalitarian nightmare always starts first with the rhetoric. It starts in small steps and builds into greater strides until it is moving at a pace that cannot be stopped. Totalitarian movements, they have to creep in inches. They can never show their cards. And that is what happened to the Cambodian people. They were not able to respond quick enough. They were caught off guard, and they were not able to prepare for the nightmare that was to come. And the Cambodian people did not have a Second Amendment. They were disarmed, and as a result, the Khmer Rouge turned into the equivalent of a rabid dog turning on its owner and attacking and biting its owner. The Khmer Rouge overtook the government entirely and created an ethnic genocide that was the greatest per capita amount of bloodshed that has ever happened in mankind's history. And so we have to ask, when we hear a government official begin the slight rhetoric against the people, what are their intentions? It may not get to the full extent of what happened in Cambodia in other places like here in America, because, well, here in America, we have the Second Amendment, and we have the benefit of hindsight. We've seen what has happened to the Cambodian people and to other people across the world with similar movements, like, for example, the Bolsheviks in Russia and what the Bolshevik government did to the Russian people. But here in America, here in Texas, we have that Second Amendment. We have the hindsight of these experiences across the world. And we have the spirit of 1776 running through our blood. The spirit of 1836 is in the people of Texas. But when you hear this rhetoric start, when you hear your government begin to describe you as something you are not, we have to ask the question, what are their intentions? Here in Fort Bend County, we have witnessed a consistent pattern by the majority Texas Democrat-led county government describe the people of Fort Bend as bigoted, as ignorant, as uneducated, as dangerous, as racist, and worst. Why were they doing this? Why did this rhetoric start? And who told them to begin this campaign against the people? Who are they reporting to when they describe the people of Fort Bend as something they are not? Because this is not true. The people of Fort Bend are none of the things that the Texas Democrats describe them as. The people of Fort Bend are kind, they're neighborly, they're hardworking, they're well-intentioned, they're family-oriented, and they're non-judgmental. But this rhetoric is clear. Since the county Democrats took over the Fort Bend County government about 6 years ago, they have led a campaign, a narrative against the people of Fort Bend that is disparaging. I'm going to give you one example. And this example comes from the top cop in Fort Bend County, Brian Middleton, the district attorney, a man who built his career on the race card. And the quote I'm about to give you, when he said it, he was crying. He was sobbing. Were they crocodile tears? You decide. And here is the quote. Quote, "The pain of racism. You don't have to get beat up by police. America, you need to wake up." Unquote. There's Brian Middleton assuming the mantle of morality, assuming the moral high ground in a condescending tone, wagging his finger at Americans and telling them that they need to grow up. That's your county district attorney. What is his opinion of the people of Fort Bend County? What kind of arrogance does it take to make a judgment on people like that? I will go on to the rest of the quote. And this is Brian Middleton. Brian Middleton, quote, "It is the judges, it is the prosecutors, it is the teachers in the schools. It's the whole environment, it's your neighbors," unquote. Brian Middleton describing the people of Texas as ignorant and bigoted. He did this while he was initiating a public integrity division in the Fort Bend County District Attorney's office because he believes that this ethnic racism amongst the people of Fort Bend County is so strong that he has to do something about it. He has to take action. He thinks it's so bad that it's within our own police forces. He thinks that our own police have this bigotry in them. I don't believe that. I think our police, I think our men out on the streets are good men, well-intentioned. I do not agree with this narrative. I'll go to Ron Reynolds. Ron Reynolds, and give me a second here just to find this quote. But Ron Reynolds, I'm going to find his quote here in just 1 second. 1 second, guys. Ron Reynolds, describing the rightward-leaning residents of Fort Bend County. And here is his quote. Quote, "They believe in conspiracy theories. They reward bigotry and racism and xenophobia. They are anti-Muslim, anti-LGBTQ, anti-Black, anti-Asian. I could go on and on." Unquote. Ron Reynolds, Texas House State Representative, House District 2. District 27. So clearly, there's a political party here in Fort Bend County that has a very disparaging view of the people of Fort Bend. Is this true? Are the people of Fort Bend, are they how they are described? Now we will go to KP George, who has a very strong racial narrative when he describes the people of Fort Bend. And what he did is he went to the Houston Chronicle. And the headline of the article is this: "Fort Bend County judge calls out racist, xenophobic attacks that are flooding his office." So there you go. KP George says that if you come to the county commissioner's court or you call his office and you criticize KP George, he goes to the Cron and describes you as a bigot. Okay, so I've just given you 3 of the top county officials in Fort Bend County, all Texas Democrats, and all believe, it's fairly clear to me that they believe that the people of Fort Bend, the people of Texas, are something that they are not. And so this is the Chris Heasley Show, and on this show, we will give you all the ideas, the content, the information that you need to take back your county, your village, your borough, your township, your school district, your city, your county, your state, the state of Texas, and your country. But it's on you. The duty is on you to get involved and be an active part of your local governance, because we always advocate for local activism, because at the local level, you have the greatest bang for your buck. And it's time to take back our country. There should never be a narrative between a government and the people that exists like is existing today in Fort Bend County. It should never exist. And we have to ask the question, when those pointed terms start, what are their intentions? What is the end result if the people don't stand up and take back their county government? Of course, it's never going to get here in Texas like it did in Cambodia, and thank God for that. But we have to ask, was the ball beginning to be rolled in a certain direction? And with that being said, we have 2 guests on our show today. We have Jason Joseph running for tax assessor, right, Jason?
Tax assessor collector.
Excellent, excellent. I got to give you a little bit more volume. And we have Marshall Slott running for county sheriff. Marshall, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Chris. Thanks for inviting me to the show and giving me the opportunity to talk to Radio to Bang's listeners here this morning.
Thank you very much. So we got a lot of stuff going on in Fort Bend County, and I'm just make sure that all the microphones are working well. We got a lot of stuff going on in Fort Bend County, a lot of things happening, but I just want to start off. We're going to get to all of that stuff, but I want to start off, and I want to hand the floor off to Jason. Jason, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for tax assessor?
So I'm running for a tax assessor because I just see inefficiency and the mismanagement in the tax office. I wanted to fix that, and I do have an experience and expertise to bring into the tax office, and I can make it our citizens' life a little more easier to pay the taxes. So if you don't put the efficiency into the tax collection process, how can you expect when they spend the money efficiently? So that's one of my key point to just come and just to put my expertise and experience into work and make it that office more efficient.
What is the state of the office today? Why are you saying that the office needs improvements?
So we are not utilizing the complete technology into the offices. And if you wanted to rub shoulders with the other nations, we need to step up in our technology. So in order to pay the taxes, if you go visit any offices today, and the wait time from 45 minutes to all the way to 1 hour. And our efficiency is too low on that one. And we have online presence is very low. And we can collect the taxes a little more efficiently by implementing more kiosk or more online presence and through the credit cards and electronically accepting the payments and stuff. So we can make it a little bit more efficiently.
Does the tax assessor's office have some role to do with county elections?
Yes, the tax assessor's role in the county elections is very important. The key role of the tax assessor is keep up with the election data, voter rolls, and collaborate with the election integrity department with our property tax data as well. So they're going to match and the data, whether the people belongs to the certain addresses or they moved out, all these things to be reconciled.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so you do that? That's your primary role, or you step in if another party isn't able to do it? I apologize.
No. The primary role for the tax assessor collector is property valuation. Property valuation, tax roll preparation, assessment administration, and public engagement, data management, collaboration, fraud prevention, support for local budgets. So these are the key roles for the tax assessor collector's office performs.
But I thought that you step in on elections if there's another office that can't, like for example, if you're the backup. Is that the case, or you're on the election stuff? You also have a primary role.
No, I will be one of the tax assessor will be one of the board member. Let's put it that way. So the tax assessor have three major roles. One is the property assessment and tax collection, and the second one is serve as appraisal board member. Third one is election integrity board member. You're running a formidable campaign.
Yes. It's fair for a tax assessor, that's not the highest level of office. It's not Congress or anything of that sort. But you seem to be running a very comprehensive campaign. Why are you putting so much into this office, into this election?
Because there is water integrity is the number one. Number two is collection of the data. Collection of the fund is one of the main issue that we are happening right now in the tax offices, especially the integrity and the accountability of the money we collect. So we have seen money is missing from the tax offices. Thousands of dollars are missing from the tax office, those who collected, and it never reached the bank. And we have another issue is counterfeit currencies are floating around, and there are many investigation on it, and we couldn't reach anywhere. And these are the things that are going on in the tax assessor's office today. And we have so many other, the misuse of the fund, the tax assessor collector's office is taking extravagant training experience in all over the United States. It's not only the tax assessor is traveling, and the team and the entire team is traveling, and it costs the taxpayers tremendous amount of money. And when we ask the questions, what are the taxpayers benefiting out of these conferences? Apparently nothing. Only the tax assessor collector is the only one who travel extensively for these kind of trips, and misuse of the county properties and the hostile work environment. These are the things that need to be changed. The people in the Fort Bend County deserve better government offices, and the deal with the office should be a little bit more easier for the citizens and for the businesses.
Okay, so monies went missing.
Yes.
How long ago was that and how much?
It's 2 instances recorded. It's a public record. One is $6,900. Another one is $1,500 from 2 different offices.
Okay, so under $10,000.
Yes. I mean, who's actually going to pay for this missing funds? I mean, somebody has to pay and reconcile that accounts, right? So it means the Fort Bend County citizens, the hard-earned citizens' money is actually spent on it.
And so you also said misuse of public facilities.
Yes.
Expand on that.
One of the main thing is that the county has the vehicle given to the tax assessors. I have my campaign, or the people can see it. That vehicle being used for the tax assessors for their campaign. Even in the Sundays, I mean, in the weekends, not only in the Fort Bend, it's in Harris County as well. So these are the things need to be stopped. What kind of business they do in Harris County on Sundays, attending a private event with the county vehicle? Who's paying for it? You and I.
How often does that happen?
I just saw 2 times. I mean, recently we were following the movement of the vehicle, and we just found out there are so many things are happening in like that way.
Okay, and then what about, you said that the expense account's getting abused.
Yes, the tax assessor's purchase card has been revoked once, then reinitiated later. And there are instances out there, it's all our public information. So why we need to put up with that, and there is no accountability and integrity in there.
How much? Give me some examples.
I don't know. I do not have the exact information. I saw a lot of public information, one of the websites recently. So somebody collected from the county and put it out there.
Okay, and then we're going to talk about elections, because I assume that you have some concern about election integrity as well. Just my opening monologue. Do you have an opinion on it? Do you share any of the sentiments that the Texas Democrats are going the wrong way, or do you have an opinion on it at all?
Yes, they are going the wrong way, and especially the ballot harvesting is a bigger problem here in Fort Bend County. So even if you look at it, we can just see the amount of mail-in ballots from a certain establishment is coming very often. Every elections you see that pattern, especially the nursing homes and the healthcare facilities, those who cannot vote or take the decision by themselves. And if you look at the address and the individual who voted for the certain parties, it's evident.
Okay, we got to get Marshall in this conversation, but and we're going to talk more about that, because I've been getting some phone calls this week on election integrity, ballot harvesting, other tactics that are being used as we get near the finish line here. We'll get into all of those things. Marshall, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Chris.
Good. So tell me about yourself. Tell me why you're running. And then we can get into the state of the Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office.
Awesome. Again, thanks for having me this morning. So, Marshall Slott, I'm running for Fort Bend County Sheriff. I'm nearly a lifelong resident of Fort Bend County. I'm a third-generation Fort Bend County resident. My family's been in Fort Bend County since 1955. My grandparents moved here. My grandfather was a banker. My mom actually went to I went to the elementary school where my mom went to high school. So I've been my family's been ingrained in Fort Bend County activities since the mid-50s. My father and mother served in law enforcement in Fort Bend County when I was a child in the 70s and 80s. And in the 1990s, I picked up the mantle and became a police officer at the age of 20. I graduated from Clements High School Go Rangers. For those of you out there that go to Clements High School or graduated from there, howdy. Yeah, so I went to college for 2 years, but I knew that I wanted to be a police officer. So at the age of 20, I went through the Alvin Community College Law Enforcement Academy and joined the Alvin Police Department, where I worked for 3 years. Met my beautiful wife, Cheryl. We've been married for 31 years and have 3 grown kids and 2 beautiful grandbabies that they all live in the same neighborhood where we live out in Fort Bend County, out in Pecan Grove. Worked for Alvin Police Department for 3 years. Then made the move to the Houston Police Department, where right outside the studios here was my patrol district. It's kind of unique sitting here looking over the district I used to patrol with, Houston PD. Was with Houston Police Department for 3 years. But by God's good graces, I ended up at I started in a small agency, went to a huge agency, and ended up at the Sugarland Police Department, which was the right size agency for me. Sugarland was really about community service. It was one of the agencies that ingrained in me service to the community. Law enforcement doesn't exist to lord over a community. It exists to serve the community and protect the community. And really learned that with the Sugarland Police Department. But while I was there, I was selected to command a countywide investigative task force, where I answered to then Sheriff Milton Wright and 4 police chiefs. And we put together a great team that attacked crime in all those areas of the county. So strong relationships in Fort Bend County law enforcement going all the way back to the late 90s. I've been blessed to work with some really great people. I believe I'm an expert in my field in law enforcement. I believe I'm an expert in leadership, but I don't know everything. And so I really attribute much of my success to those around me, all working as a team to move the ball down the field and really serve the community. For the last 10 and a half years, January 2013 through mid-year 2023, I served as a reserve deputy with the sheriff's office while I was working in corporate security for Chevron. So I have this unique blend. I have over 3 decades of law enforcement experience, but side by side or intertwined with that, I've got this unique experience as a influential business leader in corporate security. So I bring in that public sector service and understanding the minutia and the details and details of how to serve and how to serve well in law enforcement. But I've learned a ton from serving in private sector as well. And I believe that 30 plus years of service in law enforcement with over 25 of those directly serving and protecting Fort Bend County, along with my business service, really makes me uniquely qualified to step in here and repair and transform our Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office from I'm looking for the best word for the chaos, the state of chaos that exists within the sheriff's office now. We really need a good leader there to basically install servant leadership and really empower our deputies to go about fighting crime instead of just responding to it. And I want to empower them not only to fight crime, but to be leaders in our community, installing that servant leadership at the top, requiring that at every level of leadership all the way down to our deputies, and getting it into our deputies' heads that the way they serve and protect the community is actually a demonstration of service and a demonstration of leadership in the community. We need to be leaders in the community, thought leaders, but not from the standpoint of telling people how to think, but recognizing that there's a rule of law. And let's respect law and order and let everybody go about their lives. Everybody wants to live, work, worship, and play without fear of becoming a victim of crime or having other people tread on their rights. That's what law enforcement is about, is protecting people's rights, serving them on those unfortunate days where somebody else has tread upon them, and giving them the best level of service we can all the way through that process. We deal with people on the worst days of their lives. We need to show empathy to a certain degree, but we also need to respect the rule of law. Enforce the law, protect our community, and we'll all be safer for it and better for it. I believe our businesses will do better, our schools will do better, our religious organizations can function better in a safe environment. It's that foundation of safety and security that we really need to establish in partnership with our other municipal and state law enforcement agencies in Fort Bend County. And I really want to get back to that focus of serving the community. So thanks for that long-winded answer, but the opportunity to give you that. But those are my beliefs. That's my heart belief. It's not just a platitude. It's not just about coming in here and trying to win an office. I'm truly doing this to serve the community.
Yes, to me, it sounds like you are a product of Fort Bend from before yourself, from your family. Your family's roots are here. You see, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but maybe what you see is what I see, which is a constant state of decay in Fort Bend. I feel like we're losing our county. And so I'm sure that's something that the earlier generations of your family would be aghast at. And it sounds like that's your driving motivation to play a very pivotal role as the county sheriff. There's almost not more of a pivotal role that can be played as county sheriff in Fort Bend County and take your stake in saving the county. Do I describe that right?
You hit the nail on the head. My family, like I said, been here since the 50s. Fort Bend County, we have a history in this country of racism. We have a history of bad stuff. But that's what I love about America is that we move the ball forward. We move the ball forward in thought and how we treat each other, respect each other. Fort Bend County, and when I'm growing up in the 70s and 80s, was kind of the first generation of immigrants coming over from South Asia. So I went to high school with many, many immigrants, first generation immigrants. And, I didn't see racism or bigotry or anything like that. We saw each other as equals. Clements High School was probably one of the first high schools in Fort Bend County to really have a tremendous mix of people, a very diverse student population. In the 80s, I graduated from Clements in 1989. Still friends with many. We had a huge class, almost 1,500 people. And it was extremely diverse. So to me, I've always known diversity as a young man, as a teenager, as a young man, and then serving one of the most diverse counties in the country. So it hurts my heart when I hear people bring up bigotry and racism and making statements that allude to Fort Bend County residents as a whole being racist and bigoted. There are those individuals who are. You're never going to root that out. We live in a sinful, fallen society. And we can't accept that as the norm, and we cannot accept that from our leaders making statements that with a broad brush paint our community as racist. You need to deal with the specifics, and that's really where my heart is.
Well, it's a racial narrative. It's a racial tone that's being inserted into our dialogue for the specific purposes of division. I've grown up with minorities. We saw them as one of our own. It was never an issue until the Texas Democrats arrived on the scene. And they continually pound the hammer for more racial division. And it's a tactic to divide and conquer. I propose the question, is there anything that's on the Texas Democrats' agenda that's beneficial for the people of Fort Bend, for the people of Texas? I can't find a thing. It's certainly not the border. It's not the racial division. It's not what they want to do to our children, all the sick ideas they want to do to our children. Their rally cry today is abortion. That's the only thing that they can really muster up. And if that is your premise of re-election, that's a pretty sad premise. But did you want to say something, Jason? Just drop it on you.
About regarding the racism.
On what we're talking about.
Regarding the racism. Okay.
Yeah.
When I joined the Republican Party, many of the people just asked me, they are a racist party. Then why you are joining with them? Today you can see that I'm actually the nominee for the GOP. One of the things that I have seen is I never felt any racism in it. I have a lot of people that I made friendship with, and all of them are supporting me. I never felt any kind of animosity or racism or saying something against me or any community or anything. I feel like the Fort Bend GOP, especially a Fort Bend GOP, is a party of inclusion. So I firmly believe that, and I always embrace that fact that they accept everybody. And that's my view. Yeah. I never, ever felt it.
Yeah,
so I can get along with all the candidates here, especially the martial law, and we've been known for almost a year and a half, and we share everything how we are conducting our campaign, and everything that we do as a team. I never felt anything differently.
There certainly is a camaraderie being built within the county. I think everybody in Fort Bend County feels the spirit of 1836, and they're trying to find their way of saving this county. Although, boy, it's an uphill battle. But more to make the point of racial division, I laid out a pretty serious argument in the beginning where I show how rhetoric is the first step towards a totalitarian movement, and absolutely the rhetoric was initiated. That label has been put on the people of Fort Bend County by the Texas Democrats. But then they take it a step further. And one of the things is that Eric Fagan, the county sheriff, when he got sworn in, he got sworn in on the Black national anthem. And, there's only one national anthem. It's called the United States National Anthem, and it's that way for a specific purpose. I'm of Ukrainian ethnicity. If I was running for any political office, the idea that I would somehow swear allegiance to a party that's not America, a division of people or anything of that sort, it would be nonsense. That is a purposeful tactic to create division. It is a tactic to create tension in the community. If all of a sudden I said, hey, I want to be sworn in on the Ukrainian national anthem, that's saying to everybody who's not a Ukrainian, you don't belong. And nobody benefits from that. This county is a mix of so many different ethnicities. If we all of a sudden start aligning with just our little specific group, then we no longer have a county. And I think that's the reason why they're doing these things. And, so the idea, that you only have allegiance to America and America first. At least that's how I see it. What do you think of Eric Fagan's tactic of swearing in on something other than the United States, national anthem?
So I believe that we all come, I'm a second-generation immigrant. My family came from Holland after World War II and experienced true racism and annihilation of a people group that was attempted and accomplished in a large degree. I have no problem with people who come to America celebrating their culture, embracing their culture, and continuing their cultural experiences. But when you're not American first, as somebody who's immigrated to this country or a second, third generation immigrant, we are Americans first, and I would argue Texans equally, being born and raised in Texas. So I don't have any problem with other songs being played, but the primary song needs to be the United States National Anthem, the Star Spangled Banner. That's what should be played. If you want to play another song, that's great. But it is the Star Spangled Banner. Honor America, honor Texas, honor Fort Bend County, regardless of culture, race, ethnicity, religion. That's the diversity of our county. And when you try to divide things into segments and treat people differently or address one group this way and another group this way and another group this way, I don't think that's being truthful to yourself. I think you're trying to play a part, play a role, and it's viewed as being exclusive to others. So we're all about inclusion and respect of people's rights. But when I say inclusion, I mean inclusion as an American, inclusion as a Texan, inclusion as a Fort Bend County resident. The rest of that is great. It's the melting pot that America is, but it's America. And so respect our country, respect our state, respect our community, and don't do things that can be viewed as being divisive.
Yep.
Don't do. Let me clarify that. Don't be things that can be viewed as divisive by slicing the pie and just serving a portion of the community. That's been one of my challenges with Fagan. Is I've said this publicly. I think he serves and favors a portion of the community instead of being a sheriff for all of Fort Bend County, and so. That's one of the reasons I want to run is be the sheriff for all of Fort Bend County, not just focusing on one people group.
So what is the state of crime today? Crime, or I should say crime and safety, however you want to describe it. What is the state of Fort Bend County today from that standpoint?
So there's two components to that. One is the facts and the data, which are the most important. You build arguments and understanding and operations and actions on facts. But there's also perceptions. So the state of Fort Bend County crime is not as bad as it could be, but it is increasing. Just through this year alone, there have been 14 homicides in Fort Bend County, which is a significant increase over years past.
Say that stat again, please. One more time.
There's been 14 homicides in Fort Bend County this year, which is a significant increase over the number of homicides last year. Earlier this year, there was a state of crime in Fort Bend County presentation put on by some municipal chiefs, the sheriff, and the district attorney's office. They founded a study that showed that certain crimes were decreasing, but overall property crimes are increasing significantly. And since that presentation, which I believe was in April or May of this year, there's been a significant number of violent crimes in Fort Bend County that are an increase over last year's. So that's the data. And when you look at the data, it shows that. But also, when you walk, I ask you, you live in Fort Bend County. Do you feel safer when you walk out of your house and take your family to go shopping or go to a restaurant? That's the perception issue. I think Do you feel safer?
No, absolutely not. I'm in Meadows Place. We have, I think, 5 to 8. We're small. 1 square mile. We have 5 to 8 police constantly patrolling because we live on the border of areas that are not good. And I'm going to go into that more. I have a specific question for you.
Okay.
But go. I don't want to interrupt you. Make your point.
No, but I mean, so you've got the data. The data shows it's trending upward. That crime is increasing, and then you have the perception, which if you don't believe you're safe, then you're not safe. You work off of those perceptions. So the data and your perceptions both matter. I think one of those things that contributes to feeling safer is seeing more deputies on the street, seeing more traffic enforcement. And let me be really clear about traffic enforcement for those of you drivers out there. I'm not a big proponent of traffic citations. They work, they're necessary, but I do want the Fort Bend County deputies to initiate significantly more traffic contacts. We observe a significant number of violations every day. You can't drive 2 blocks without seeing somebody run a red light or run a stop sign or break the speed limit or not signal a lane change. Those are all safety issues. You know, I've got kids who are drivers. I've got adult kids who are drivers, and it concerns me. My grandbabies are being transported around in a car, and I don't want somebody not paying attention and driving in a way that's erratic, that is unsafe. So I think when you have deputies making contacts with folks to say, hey, I observed you committing a traffic violation, the right outcome of that may be simply a warning. Hey, please don't do that again. You're looking for compliance there. Comply with the existing laws. And sometimes enforcement's necessary through a traffic citation. That's the deputy's decision each and every traffic contact. So it gets down to we need to live in a safe community. And if you have more traffic enforcement, you see more deputy engagement. You see more deputy activity on the street. If you're a crook, what does that signal to you? It signals to you, ooh, they're on the ball out here. Let me go somewhere else and employ my tactics of victimizing others instead of doing it here because I'm going to get caught. We live next to Harris County, which is in disarray, significant disarray. We need to keep that crime wave from really taking over Fort Bend County. That's the job of the sheriff and the law enforcement in Fort Bend County, working in partnership with our municipal agencies. Meadows Place is a great chief, great staff there. They do a great job. You guys are right on the side of 19G40's beat, which is a Houston area, which has a tremendous crime problem. And they do a great job of keeping it out of the Meadows Place. Sugar Land, Stafford, Missouri City all border Harris County. Katy borders Harris County. So we need strong enforcement to push those criminals back into Fort Bend County or catch them and throw them in our house at Fort Bend County Jail.
Are the crime statistics being reported correctly?
I don't believe so, but I will tell you.
I heard that they might not even be being reported at all in some cases.
I think there's some games being played there. I will tell you on our current sheriff's, one of his platitudes, his campaign tactics is to say, I'm going to be accountable and transparent. He's been anything but. A couple years, 2 years ago, they took down the active calls for service that anybody could log on to the sheriff's website, the county's website, and see active calls for service in their area. Calls happening right now, so that if you heard sirens or if you saw some deputies run into driving quickly to a scene, you could understand what that was. So they removed that because they would believe that there was privacy concerns, and I get that with the medical calls, that was the bigger issue. But it took them, that was down a significant amount of time. They finally put it back up on some degree. Another issue is crime mapping. They were in agreement with a private company that takes crime data and maps it so that if you put in your address, you can see the crimes that have happened around your area within the last day, week, month, or year. It's $3,500 a year was the account. They stopped paying that nearly 2 years ago. $3,500 a year so that you and I, as citizens of Fort Bend County, can see what's going on in our area.
Why did they stop it?
They claimed it was a budget issue, which didn't make sense to me. When you file a public information request, they take too long to respond to that. And then when they do, they frequently block the information. They block the request, citing some attorney general's opinion that this information shouldn't be released to the public. Let me give you a really firm example of this. And if you'll give me a second to explain this, I don't want to monopolize too much time here, but it's important. So many of us in Fort Bend County, we have families in Fort Bend County. We have children in Fort Bend. Our families have children. We have many schools in Fort Bend County. Between May of 21 and May of 24, the Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office registered 450 sex offenders. But they also have a duty to verify the address of sex offenders. Do you think that a sex offender might lie? Because there's the most recidivism of all criminals is in sex offenses. Do you think that a sex offender might lie about where he lives if he wants to continue his victimization of our community? Of course they're going to lie. So what's the job of the sheriff's office when someone reports that they live at 123 Main Street, when a sex offender says, I live at 123 Main Street? You think there's a duty for the safety of the community for the sheriff to go out and knock on that door and make sure that criminal X who reported he lives there actually lives there? Absolutely. That didn't happen with 450 sex offenders between May of 21 and May of 24. I found out about this because of my relationships within the sheriff's office. They've gone back and retroactively verified those. So kudos to them for making up that gap. But for 3 years, they did not verify the addresses of 450 sex offenders. Do you think that gave them an opportunity to victimize other children and other people in the community? Absolutely. I found out about this. I submitted a public information request, and they blocked it, saying just the question of, can you tell me how many you verified between this time? They blocked it with an attorney general's opinion. That doesn't seem accountable. That doesn't seem transparent. That angers me. As a citizen of our community, I live in Fort Bend County, obviously. That information needs to be known so you can make wise decisions and hold them accountable so that you're informed, and then you can hold them accountable if they're not doing that, if they're not doing their job. I confronted them the other day with this at a forum and after the forum, and they're claiming that they're going to get me the information. I'm still waiting on that to happen. That's just one example of crime data that's not being provided. So sorry, long-winded there.
I got one more question for you. Did you not operate a special crimes task force that was over the county border? So it sort of brought Harris County and Fort Bend County together. Did you do that in your career?
I commanded a task force. It was made up of all of Fort Bend County. It covered Fort Bend County. It did not have every agency from Fort Bend County. We would occasionally go into Harris County because crooks don't honor county lines or city limits. But our primary focus was protecting Fort Bend County. When things would cross over into other jurisdictions outside of Fort Bend County, we would work hand in hand with those law enforcement agencies to assist them with efforts in their county or their cities.
Because, of course, I live on the border of Harris and Fort Bend County, and I bring this up regularly because I just started having to use the HOV lane on-ramp on West Belfort and 59, and it is a nightmare. It is a homeless encampment. There's prostitutes openly walking. There's syringe needles, bottles filled with urine, what looks to be migratory immigrants in our county. Homeless encampments, boxes and woods put together to make homes. I can't imagine the amount of assault and drug abuse and everything that's happening there. Of course, I attribute it 100% to the economic climate created by the globalist agenda. But with that being said, that is a stone throw from Fort Bend County. What is your opinion of that situation?
So it's horrible. I drive
It's less than a quarter mile.
I drive that same area, and so it's incumbent upon law enforcement in Fort Bend County to aggressively push back on those and enforce crimes that are committed from those areas that do enter into Fort Bend County. I think the area you're referring to is you're going to end up with a jurisdictional pushback. You're going to end up saying, no, it's not mine. It's not mine. The Houston Police Department and the Metropolitan Transit Authority, they have police. So you have Metro Police and you have Houston Police Department. The Houston Police Department doesn't patrol within Metro's, like the Metro stop right there at West Belfort and 59. Houston Police Department doesn't answer calls for service. So if Metropolitan Police the Metro Police Department is not actively policing that, then that's going to allow that to occur. So they need to step up their act there if that's occurring to that significant degree. Houston Police Department is only going to catch it when it comes outside that fence line or right around it. So strong law enforcement in Fort Bend County, catching crooks in the midst of their crimes. Well, let's start with the proactive side first. Strong visibility, strong patrol tactics will prevent crime. That's been proven. The broken windows theory. You handle the small issues, and the bigger issues don't develop. So the broken windows theory is high visibility, strong engagements, strong enforcement of criminal laws. That puts up that border, that boundary that pushes them back. So they're going to go where they're not going to get squeezed. They're going to go where they're not going to get stopped, which fortunately is happening. Meadows Place, Stafford Police Department, Sugar Land Police Department, Missouri City Police Department. So you don't see that incursion too often, but it does happen. So there's partnership between those agencies. There needs to be a stronger partnership.
But ultimately, it's an economic climate issue. Those people they're literally oppressed. I mean, people don't want to live in boxes, right? It's because of this economic agenda being placed on the American people, and it just takes it's pressure on communities like in Fort Bend County, because the minute one assault happens over the county line, that's when the exodus happens of residents. Homeowners leave, renters move in. The policing, as soon as one officer's assaulted, the police start to, and then it's just a domino theory, and then it bleeds into Fort Bend County, which I think is the economic agenda that's being put on us. And so, I do appreciate your answer. I think it's very important that everyone recognize that it's an economic agenda issue first, policing second. Regarding election integrity in the upcoming election, Jason, I want to ask, you have some sort of a role over elections should you win this position.
Yeah.
Do you have concerns about election integrity?
Yes, we do. Fort Bend County, in the Harris County, they eliminated election commissioner. So last year. So they put that power into tax collector, tax assessor collector, and the county clerk's office. So they are managing the elections. So if that happens in our
say it one more time. Who's managing the elections?
The tax assessor collector and the county clerk in Harris County. They eliminated the position for the election commissioner last year. So if that happens in a Fort Bend County, we need a conservative Republican tax assessor collector, and the county clerk should be there, and we can prevent a lot of mismanagement of the voter data.
Okay,
So
are they working to have that happen in Fort Bend County?
I don't know
Who-
yet. The
who was-
county's commissioners court have the power to do it. Do you think it's gonna?
I think they will. Okay, who was running the Harris County elections administrator? Who was it when they pulled the plug on it?
I don't know the name of the.
But it
commissioners.
sounds like a scheme to move things to the Democrat hands, like they
Exactly.
redistricted the maps.
Yes.
Again, these are not. I think the Texans, like we always we don't want to pass judgment, so we say things like, "Oh, they're just being Democrats." No, they show time and time again an ulterior motive to take the rights away from the people and shift them to the political parties.
Yes.
We know this is happening on the national agenda. But the difference between national and local is that Joe Biden doesn't live in our neighborhoods. He doesn't go to our grocery stores. He doesn't walk in our parks. These Democrats that are doing it at the local level are our neighbors, and they're doing this stuff to us.
Yeah. And one of the main important factor that I wanted to bring it here as a conservative tax assessor collector in terms of election integrity, I wanted to bring the voter registration maintenance, ensuring the property ownership records are accurate and up to date, which can help verify voter registration and eligibility. So that's a part we are missing right now. So another thing is actually data sharing. Collaborating.
One second, slow it down. Say that first one again. Voter registration, please. I apologize.
Voter registration maintenance. Okay, so ensuring the property ownership records are accurate, up to date, which can help verify their voter registration and eligibility.
So,
for
like cleaning up the voter polls.
Yes, exactly. That's what that means. I mean, when they're registered to vote, now we have an issue here. If your voter registration happening anywhere in the church or any public places, as soon as I just walk in with an ID, I can register for vote. That's what's happening right now. So how do we verify those information? But
So
that's
let me
that
ask: Do you
individual
think do you think this is okay? I know that there's a considerable effort amongst the citizens to I think clean up that data, but how is this? To what extent is this a problem today? That it's fake people getting registered to vote.
That's what we found out. Close to 1 million people registered in the Arizona, right? It's illegal aliens, illegal migrants just registered to vote. So that's one of the issue going on nationwide.
So as you bring this back to the property registration, so if somebody registers to vote and they have their address, that might not be their current
Exactly.
address. And so by comparing
The property
by
data,
cleaning up the
ownership.
property ownership rolls, you now have accurate data to compare against the voter registration rolls.
That's a very considerable point.
So we need to share the data with the collaborating with the election officials to provide accurate property tax data that can assist in maintaining the integrity of voter rolls.
Okay.
Can I?
Yeah,
I'm
please
sorry.
go. No, go.
I was going to bring something back to your comment earlier about our neighbors and about the national agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring this point home to Radio to Bang's listeners. There's a federal election going on at the same time. There's a state election at the same time. There's a county election at the same time. There's even more local elections to your municipal utility districts or levy boards or cities. I want to make it really clear to Radio to Bang listeners. Federal elections are important because they turn the tide of the country. But your day-to-day life is affected more significantly by your local sheriff, by your local county judge, by your local county tax assessor, by your local court judges, than anything from the federal level will affect your day-to-day life. The safety of your family, the business culture in which you function your businesses, the schools, the school board elections are important. The schools that you send your children to, that's all determined on the local level. The federal sets the trend, but we can control that here and protect your rights, protect the quality of your life by voting appropriately locally. And your comment earlier, the one I wanted to point back to, was that it's our neighbors who are being elected into these offices and then turning that power and making it an overarching power grab, serving themselves in some instances more than they're serving the community. I'm not making a broad, I don't want to, we need to get into specifics. And as a sheriff, I deal with as law enforcement, I deal with specific facts. So I want to make sure we're not painting everybody with a broad brush. But locally, there's some government officials who are serving themselves and not serving the community. They are seeking to make themselves better, stronger, influentially, financially,
more power
to gain power and control over our lives. We need to push back as local citizens and really focus on the down ballot races. And when I say down ballot, the federal elections are at the top, the state are next, and then the county. So all of our many of these listeners understand that there's a federal election going on, but they need to educate themselves about the candidates all the way down the ballot and really focus on your local candidates, because those are the ones, we are the ones that are going to make the biggest difference in the quality of your life here in Fort Bend County. Thanks for allowing me to interrupt there.
Yes. Yeah, and one of the other things that fraud prevention, identifying inconsistencies in property records that may indicate potential voter fraud or irregularities. So that we can do by implementing more technologies and cross-referencing with the voter records and our property records. And public education is another thing, informing citizens about importance of accurate property information and their role in electoral process. So we need to educate them. This is what's going to happen. I mean, many times when you go there to vote and they didn't change their driver's license and the ID and anything like that, they may not be able to vote. So these are the things we need to educate the people, and public education initiative should be taken care of there.
So I had a conversation this week with an Indian Muslim woman, and I asked her how she's voting. She said, without hesitation, I'm voting Republican. Yeah. She said everybody in her community, the Indian Muslim community, is voting Republican. Then she went on to say, and I know Pakistanis, I know Hindu Indians, they're all voting Republican. Everybody in her sphere of influence is voting Republican. And so what I'm saying is that, the Democrats are kind of in a tight spot, and I'm very concerned about election integrity. So I heard this. I heard that it is a possibility that a local politician, a candidate running for office, that could be approached by professionals who, for a sizable payment, they'll go out and get the nursing homes signed up to vote for whoever candidate. Are you guys familiar with this or aware of this at all?
I heard about such instances many times, but I do not have a concrete proof to provide you. And I can tell you from the voter mail-in ballots, the results from our elections, and the most mail-in ballots coming for the Democrats candidates, and it's close to double even in the primaries. Even the last primaries, it's more mail-in ballots are coming for the Democrat candidates. And I have a feeling that it's, the people who cannot vote for themselves, somebody is actually influencing their votes. And I don't think the conservative Republicans are doing that kind of initiatives. So they are going in there, they just provide them with the applications, and they will fill for the voter for themselves. I mean that's been proven. I mean, we can take a look at how the voters are reacting on that, and from the same facility or the same address, we have the hundreds of votes for the same party. So,
what percentage of the total voting is ballots? Is mail-in ballots?
I can't because I can't.
Roughly, do you know the number?
Maybe 1%, less than 1%.
It's a small percentage.
Yeah,
but in these races that are down to the hair,
yeah,
it's decisive.
Yeah, especially in the primary elections, that's what's happening.
So, and when you bring that to the general election, our country is split significantly. I would argue somewhat equally. There's probably 40% that are Democrat. Probably, I would argue. I know in let's bring it back to Fort Bend County. Fort Bend County has more registered Republican voters than we do Democrat registered voters. So Republicans getting out to vote is important. So when you bring in those issues of voter integrity and the issues of mail-in ballots and all that kind of stuff, I think some of our races are going to come down to 1,000 votes. You can look at Ed Krenick's race.
It was 120 votes last time.
I think it was 194. I've heard him quoting him. I believe I'm quoting him accurately there. Ed Krenick, who's currently running for the 400th District Court in Fort Bend County, which is a significant court that needs a new judge based on some statements that were made recently. And we can get into that if you want to ask that question.
More of the race baiting.
Yeah.
He lost by 194 votes, and there were over, I believe it's 250,000 votes cast. So every vote matters, and when you get to every vote matters, you talk about ballot harvesting or going to a nursing home and signing everybody up and then basically voting for them for one candidate or one party. That's counter. That cuts against the grain of the integrity that we believe that we want to put into our voting system. Every vote should matter. Every vote should be cast with thought and with intention of voting for the candidate that the individual casting the ballot to their desires, not somebody else's. So that's a concern. I trust I'm very pleased with some of the work that's been done by some voter integrity groups here in Fort Bend County. They are working diligently on a daily basis to ensure that we have the strongest level of integrity and confidence in our voting. I hope they continue their efforts, and I wish them success. I still think there'll be some issues and some questions, but ultimately, at the end of the day, the good Lord's in charge of where we go. But the ones who make it happen are the individual voters getting out to vote early in our process rather than waiting for Election Day.
Yeah, and I think that I think that we brought up some legitimate concerns with voting, right? You have these schemes. First of all, mail-in voting. They never confirm who the actual person is who filled out that mailer. And so that's very suspicious. And then you have people going to the nursing homes and getting the cards filled out and dropping them off. Very suspicious activities when these elections can be razor thin. But then the third element is the machines themselves. And I received a call this week from someone who's put a lot of work into election integrity, trying to clean things up. And she says that basically that the machines are very questionable, and it's the last resort of trying to steal an election. Do you have any opinion on the machines?
I wish I did. I think those machines need to be trustworthy. I'm not a technical expert when it comes to those voting machines, but I would love for there to be some type of external audit of these systems every voting period, before the voting occurs and after the voting occurs. Independent auditors, much like we have poll watchers and poll judges. I would love for our poll judges to have access to at least view the activities and information that's being pulled from each of the machines that's brought to central count. If that's not happening, I believe it should, because we need eyeballs on it. We want accountable and transparent government, and that we can get that at our local level. If Jason's elected,
yeah.
I think he's going to have a significant influence on that.
So the last election cycle, we had some issues with water machines. You know what their response was? It's a calibration issue. I don't know what does that mean. How the normal voters is going to figure out that is, because if you select one person, it always goes to the other person. So it happened in the last November election, not this one, in the 2022 election. So we have thousands of machines out there, and there's a one or two may have some issues. So how can we rectify that? Who are you going to call? No idea.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
I know day one of primary voting.
Yes.
Day one of primary voting for this election cycle, people would go in and say, I'm requesting a Republican ballot. It also happened the other way. I'm requesting a Democrat ballot, and the machine would spit out the opposite party ballot.
Yeah.
They caught that very early on in the process, but it happened at multiple polling locations.
Yes.
To me, that's on the Elections Administration's office to make sure that we're ready to go the moment the polls open. You shouldn't have an issue like that. So if the machines aren't reliable, then we need to figure out a better way to do it. I don't have the answer to what that better way
exactly.
is
And
at the
I have
moment.
to add one more thing about, the most probably we will have that time change issue this time as well. And we won't be able to vote until 8 o'clock because it starts at 7, because the time didn't change automatically last year. The November election, because October 31st, we changed the hour.
And the machines didn't update.
Machine didn't update it, and then we need to wait 1 hour outside because the machines are not taking anything, because it's saying that it's
Hoping
not
that you go home.
So these are the things. This is what I've called the technology inefficiency there. We need to check all these machines and make sure this works. Then who's actually accountable for all these mishaps? How many people are waiting outside? Thousands of man hours are wasted. That's a productive hours in the morning. People just don't understand it. They just say, okay, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. That's it.
These are single-function rudimentary machines.
Yes.
The equivalent of a calculator. A calculator might have more functions that it does than these machines. Your phone that you hold in your hand is a considerably more sophisticated computer than these machines. They're just simple, dumb machines.
I can tell you one other.
And we're told that these machines have so many issues. I think it's a scam. Go ahead.
One more thing I wanted to add. Every laptop the election judges use, you look for the password is right there on that, just above the keyboard, visible.
That breaches every level of basic cybersecurity.
That's what I'm saying. It's in a big letters and masked with the Scotch tape. That's their password for the computer.
Yep.
So that's how irresponsible our elections. I mean, I don't know who to blame for. That's how things are running.
It comes out of that's all driven by the administration, the
Yes.
Elections Administration Office.
Yep.
I've had a conversation with John Oldham, met him twice. He was very respectful. I've heard good things and bad things about him, so I'm not going to make a judgment either way. My interactions with him have been positive, but I've heard significantly that he has blocked efforts to go too far
Yes.
in strengthening voter integrity.
That's what I was told this week too.
I've heard that. I don't know the facts about it, which makes it concerning to me. You trust but verify. Without having the facts, I hesitate to make the full, complete judgment. But that's, again, where we go back to the accountability and transparency of our local government. And I think getting the right leaders in Fort Bend County will drive us to being much more accountable, much more transparent on the front side, on the first side, because it's that transparency that allows for the community to hold us accountable. You should demand accountability from every level of government office.
Okay, can I get you for another 5 minutes or so?
You got me as long as you need.
So I'm going to shift. Yeah, we're over, but we have this time, so we're okay. I want to shift the conversation quickly to the issue of KP George and Terrell Patel, where they are now indicted for falsifying online profiles and posing as conservative Fort Bend County Republicans, and then making racist and disparaging remarks towards minorities in Fort Bend, an obvious effort to malign the people of Fort Bend and I think in my opening monologue, I showed that this sentiment, this racial sentiment, is held by every Texas Democrat in Fort Bend County. I think that they all believe in this racial sentiment that KP George made in this scheme. And so we're at a point now where KP George has been indicted by Brian Middleton, who's had a close working relationship with KP George for some time. And, I just question whether justice will really happen when Brian Middleton has that same sentiment on the race card as KP George. He has a close working relationship. He worked with him in creating the elections task force, which is very suspicious. And that all makes me very concerned of whether justice will really happen. But there was a statement made this week by Brian Middleton, and I want to read it now. I'm going to read it to everybody, that conveys that he's taking action on KP George, that his personal biases will not be an issue in this investigation. And here is the statement from Brian Middleton, Fort Bend County District Attorney. Okay, one second here. Let me start it. Okay, here it is. The attorney for KP George recently filed a motion claiming that his prosecution for the misdemeanor charge of misrepresentation of identity under the Texas Election Code is unconstitutional. The motion is based on a recent Texas Court of Appeals opinion that forbids any district attorney from exercising his or her constitutional authority to prosecute certain election code crimes without first obtaining permission from the Texas Ethics Commission in Austin. KP George's motion is premature. The decision of the Court of Criminal Appeals is not final and is still being appealed. Moreover, this decision runs counter to one of the foundational principles of the Texas Constitution, which is that local district attorneys have the exclusive authority to pursue violations of law in their local jurisdictions. The concept of a gatekeeper in Austin assuming this kind of control over how local elections are policed is contrary to this important principle. It is important to note that the district attorney's investigation into the allegations against KP George is still ongoing, and this filing does not change our position on the matter. We recognize the public interest in this proceeding, but the rules of legal ethics require both prosecutors and defense attorneys not to make public statements that could materially affect a court proceeding. As such, we will file our response and present our arguments to the trial and trust that KP George's lawyers will do the same. Okay, now, here's my question with this statement. Okay, so KP George is saying is putting forth a motion claiming that his prosecution charge is unconstitutional because the Court of Appeals, a recent Texas Court of Appeals opinion forbids any DA from exercising his authority to prosecute election crimes without first obtaining permission from the ethics commissions. Then he says this: KP George's motion is premature. The decision of this criminal court of appeals is not final and is still being appealed. What decision is he talking about?
So I don't know the specific decision, but I understand the application of criminal law. As cases are being appealed, you have what's referred to as.
But real quick, okay. So KP George is appealing to the Texas Criminal Court of Appeals, right?
Correct.
And so Brian is referring to the Court of Appeals decision. Did they make a decision?
So they've made a decision apparently based on Brian's statement, and now there's an appeal to that decision, which I believe goes to the Supreme Court of Texas.
And what was their decision?
I don't think there's been which is what Brian is saying. There's been no decision on that appeal, so yet that it's still a question. It's not a final case law. Yeah. It's still a question.
Decision of the Court of Appeals is not final.
That's correct.
But I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing that there was a decision and there's not a decision.
So there's a decision that says that the Texas Ethics Commission has to give a local district attorney permission to pursue election code violation charges. But that decision is a decision. It is being appealed to the next higher court, and that decision that it's still under appeal and under examination by that higher court. So it's not yet case law because it's still not adjudicated. It's still not fully adjudicated.
So he's not referring to anything regarding KP George. He's referring to this process.
He's referring to the
legal
process. Which ultimately, at the end of the day, Brian's statement means he still fully intends to prosecute KP George and Taral Patel and any others involved in that escapade, which is what it is. It's a facade. It goes back to your opening comments about some individuals stirring up racial division for their own personal benefit. Let me just be really clear here. I've known Brian Middleton for years. I believe him to be a man of integrity. I don't agree always with his politics, but he has shown me nothing in this office that says that he's doing anything other than enforcing the laws of the state of Texas. By the simple fact that his office, the DA Public Integrity Organization unit that he established, I didn't understand the origination of it, but they are using that group as a public integrity group specifically to go after public integrity violations, which goes back to the point, I think, of the rule of law is respected by many, by the Republican Party, but not everybody in the Democrat Party. And I think it's ironic on some level that that public integrity group has found significant violations, both ethically and criminally, in our Democrat county leadership. And the fact that Brian Middleton and the public integrity group, in partnership with the Texas Rangers, are pursuing this, I believe fully that there will be more indictments to come, not only on KP but potentially other people. I don't have inside information, but as a criminal having significant amount of experience in criminal investigations and reading the affidavits that supported Patel's original search warrant and his indictment, and then KP's search warrant and then misdemeanor indictment, I believe wholeheartedly that there's more indictments to come. What those are, when they'll come, I can't speak to because I'm not the investigator, and I defer to Brian's office for that. But I encourage them and applaud them for continuing this investigation, and I hope they get a righteous outcome for Fort Bend County residents, and that we can ultimately, I think KP should step down.
Here's what my concern
at this point, based on the charges he's facing.
Okay.
But
so
we'll go from there.
Half of our conversation was on election integrity, okay? And what happened is, obviously the people of Fort Bend think there's an issue with voter fraud. However, when the Texas Democrats took office, all of the sudden there was this new narrative that voter fraud is not the issue, voter intimidation is the issue. And it was directed specifically at the conservative areas of Fort Bend County. And they've done it, I can go into details, Fulshire, Needville, other things. And so the narrative is that the country folk in Fort Bend are conspiring to go and intimidate voters so that they vote a certain way. It's nonsense, okay? And on this nonsense, the District Attorney Brian Middleton conceived the idea to create a voter elections task force. Now, I think the one thing that's concerning is that Brian Middleton is funded, as I understand it, by George Soros. And if you look at George Soros's career and history, he is always looking to profit in one way or another with a close association with governmental entities. And the theory is that for him, he could go put his money into the state legislature, but he gets a lot more bang for his buck if he puts his money in district attorneys and then lets them know what to prosecute and what not to prosecute. So, let me finish real quick here.
Okay.
So we saw Kim Ogg in Harris County, and she took the George Soros money, but then she didn't stay on the narrative. So what did he do? He dropped her like a lead weight, and he put a ton of money into Sean Ter's campaign. He clearly has political motives. And if you want to get that Soros money, you got to stay on topic. Anyone go look up the interests of George Soros, and the man has a criminal nature to him that is frightening, okay? And so you have Kim Ogg gets dropped. They get a new Harris County District Attorney candidate, and so Soros is transforming the country on a national level, while at the same time Brian Middleton is saying that we have a voter intimidation issue, so therefore we have to have the elections task force, okay? Now, what everyone's suspicion was, and I've heard multiple county officials say it, is that he wanted to get officers into the voting locations. That was the goal, okay? And you can go listen to what Jerry Monroe says, is that in Harris County they got officers into the locations, and when citizens would stand up and say, hey, it looks like election fraud is happening over here, it looks like someone's showing up with multiple IDs, the officers would stand up in the way to stop any citizen activism from stopping a potential voter crime. And so I'm just saying that now, one other thing. John Oldham was running the county elections, and as I understand it, per John Oldham, KP George and Brian Middleton were in his office almost like on a regular basis, asking about elections. Why would they be doing that? That's not their jurisdiction. It's John Oldham's jurisdiction. So what certain people said is they said that what it appeared is that Brian and KP were trying to trip John Oldham up and prevent him from running a clean operation from an election standpoint. So that event right there, I think it brings everything into question. I think it's very suspicious, and I question it.
Can I clarify something? When did that occur? What year? What voting cycle?
2020, I believe.
Okay. In 2020, I admittedly was not involved in the minutia of the political process. As a citizen, I got informed on the candidates, as every citizen should, and I voted. So I can't speak specifically to that time. What I can say under this election cycle is I have not seen that same thing from Brian Middleton.
Yeah, because look at the citizen activism. Because what happened is county citizens started to talk about this scheme. We started to call out this nonsense narrative of voter intimidation, and it dropped.
Which is good, which is the accountability and transparency that we're driving for now.
But what I'm saying continually is they are constantly testing the limits to see what they can get away with. They are opportunists, and if they have to sink KP George to save the movement, they'll do it. But I do not believe, as our county continues to go down the drain, we have poverty on every corner. We have an economic chaos. KP George shut down the economy. As a county judge, he shut down the economy. They're pushing an agenda on our children, and we expect from the district attorney's office law and order to come. I mean, I just think Texans, they are a little bit too trusting.
So, again, a lot of historical information that I don't have the depth of knowledge on that you do. So I'm not countering that. What I will say is that as the elected sheriff, I'll have the view into that and the ability to investigate that in partnership with either a state government, another state law enforcement organization, or working hand in hand and getting the inside scoop with Brian Middleton. The sheriff exists to protect the integrity and safety and enforce the laws in Fort Bend County. Going back to your comment on KP George shutting down the economy, as the next sheriff of Fort Bend County, I won't enforce any regulatory issues or administrative orders from the judge's office that shut down churches or businesses or so forth. That's an infringement upon our First Amendment rights, pursuit of happiness for businesses and pursuit of religion, or following a freedom of religion for the First Amendment. So I'm hopefully, I do see that I need to get going here.
Oh man, because I was just going to ask you, because our border's coming undone.
Yep.
And the constitutional sheriffs all got together, and a number of Texas sheriffs signed up to be constitutional sheriffs, which basically is a statement that they will do whatever they can from their sheriff's post to protect the border. I don't believe that our Fort Bend County sheriffs joined that. Did
he has not. I will be a constitutional sheriff. I will follow the Constitution.
I know.
And as your elected sheriff, I will stand in the way of any infringements upon your rights. And let me go to the immigration issues just real quick, and if I could just close out respectfully,
sure.
Chris.
No,
So
man,
I appreciate being a guest today.
It's good now, though.
So our current sheriff doesn't even understand the role of a HIDA organization, which I'll get down into the details. It's a high-intensity drug trafficking organization. But in a forum the other night, when he was asked about immigration, he referred to drug enforcement and how ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, is addressing human smuggling and illegal aliens through HIDA. That's not the purpose of HIDA. HIDA is drug trafficking. So there's two options for a local government, a local sheriff, to really partner this far this far away from the border. That's either 287G, which allows a sheriff to assign personnel to go get federally trained to enforce federal law, immigration law. I don't think that's the most appropriate way. We're already down 160 deputies. We're significantly short on the street. We're significantly short of personnel in the jail, which has led to significant budget overruns. Our sheriff is failing at running our county jail by his own admission. If you don't believe me, go look at the July 9th county commissioner's records. They basically stated that. So my solution to immigration, in the way that as a constitutional sheriff I can help with the illegal immigrant, because I'm pro-legal immigrant. Let me be really clear. I am pro-legal immigration. We need to make the processes easier on the federal level, quicker. There's a lot of changes that need to be made there. But I am anti-illegal immigration, and as your future sheriff, I intend to work hand in hand with ICE, even offering them space within our facility, so that on the daily we can run the list of names of those who've been arrested. We can bring them down to the ICE officials, have them run them against immigration databases, and those who are here illegally will have detainers put on them by ICE, and then we'll process them through our local system, and then hand them over to ICE for processing appropriately through ICE. Now, again, I can't affect the federal levels and how screwed up it's become under the Biden administration for ICE enforcing the laws. But as your local sheriff, that's what I intend to do to address the local impact of illegal immigration.
Well, you two gentlemen have certainly brought a lot of information today, and I definitely appreciate it. This hour is just getting good, but we have other commitments, and I do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Jason Joseph for County Tax Assessor.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We'll be looking forward to hearing the outcome of your election. You certainly put together a considerable campaign.
Yep.
And Marshall Slott for County Sheriff. You filled us with ideas and content and information. I certainly learned a lot from today's hour, so I do appreciate both your time. And this is Chris Heasley with the Chris Heasley Radio Show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. See you next week.